Few things in life is better for your happiness than a properly made South African pepper steak pie. Let's start with a pastry, which is somewhat of a rough puff Hufflepuff version. Close, but not too close to puff pastry. You can of course use frozen puff pastry when no one's looking. Into a large bowl goes 300 grams or 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, plain flour in the UK and SA, plus 6 grams and a teaspoon of fine salt. Give it a quick whisk to combine. Next, the butter. And you know the drill. To make it vegan, we use chicken fat instead. We need 300 grams or 1 1/3 cups, very cold and cut into cubes. 15 minutes in the freezer will get it where you want it. Toss the cubes through the flour until every piece is coated. And that's it. Do not rub the butter in, not even a sneaky little bit. Those whole cubes are the entire secret, because every piece of cold butter becomes a steam pocket in the oven, lifting the layers apart and making the crust super flaky. As soon as the butter is coated, we add 150 grams or 2/3 of a cup of ice cold water. Mix it in gently with a fork or a pair of chopsticks until you have a shaggy looking mess, with butter lumps running through it. We want to keep everything nice and cold, and using your hands will warm it up. If it looks like you gave up halfway, you're on the right track. Tip it onto a floured surface and press it into a rough rectangle. It'll look like you messed it up, but don't worry. Keep going and it'll all be good, I promise. Once it just about holds itself together, you fold it into thirds like a fancy letter. Then into a Greta bag or parchment paper, followed by a chill in the fridge for at least 1 hour. Giving us enough time to tackle our meat filling, which is a simple yet highly flavorful concoction. But before we touch any meat, we need to optionally, but highly necessary, toast our own spices. Into a dry pan, on medium heat, goes 5 grams or a tablespoon of whole black peppercorns and 2.5 grams or a teaspoon of whole coriander seeds. By the way, coriander and black pepper is the base deo to make biltong. So you know this is going somewhere good, right? Toast them for a minute, tossing off them, until they smell fragrant, but don't let them burn. Once they're toasted, crack them coarsely in a pestle and mortar or a spice grinder, although do not take them to a powder. You want to keep them a little bit coarse and they will completely soften once cooked, no worries. Set that aside for now, then indiscriminately dice 1 large or 2 medium onions. Don't be too precise as it's all going to cook down anyway. Next we need 600 grams or 1 1/3 pounds of chuck or braising beef with a little bit of fat is ideal. Any well-marbled stewing cut will also do. Cut it into roughly 3 cm dice, but don't go and measure it please. Toss the beef with 25 grams or 3 tablespoons of flour, or if you got gluten phobia, simply replace it with gluten-free flour mix. The flour helps the browning and later thickens the gravy. Heat a heavy bottom pot on high with 30 grams or 2 tablespoons of beef tallow or cooking oil. Sear the beef in batches until heavily browned all over. Do not overcrowd the pot. Color is flavor, and this is your first layer of it. Remove the beef and set it aside for now. And do not clean the pot. That brown crust on the bottom, also called the fond, is where the magic lies. Turn the heat down to low, and in goes the chopped onions, along with 30 grams or 6 to 7 cloves of minced garlic. Cook them gently until soft and translucent, scraping up the fond as you go. If you need a touch more oil, add it and be happy. And then add 9 grams or 1.5 teaspoons of salt to help the onions release their juices. Once the fond has been picked up, add a touch of water, just to let the mix stew a little bit for about 2 minutes. This browning and picking up the fond business is the part you do not skip, as it's the foundation of everything to come. Add your seared beef back in, along with 500 grams or 2 cups of beef stock. Store-bought is fine, but I have a roast dinner video showing you how to make proper beef stock from scratch for your easy enjoyment. In goes 15 grams or a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, 15 grams or a tablespoon of malt vinegar, which quietly balances the richness without leaving a trace of vinegar behind. Finally, the cracked spices and give it all a good mixing. Bring it to a gentle simmer, then straight down to very low. Cover it with a handy old cartouche, which is simply a bit of parchment paper cut to fit the cooking container. This is a chef's favorite because of ease of use, flavor and texture control, and also lids are one of the most irritating things to store in the universe. Foil or an irritating lid will also work here. Let it gently simmer for 1.5 to 2 hours, or until the beef is completely tender. Stir it every now and then to make sure it doesn't catch on the bottom, because if it burns, it'll have a burny taste and there's no way to save it. For a hands-off, no-risk method, slowly cook it in the oven at 160 degrees Celsius or 320 degrees Fahrenheit. While this cooks, we can roll out the pastry, which by now has had a good little snoozy. Onto a floured surface goes your little slab of pastry. By the way, we made plenty here, as I hate fighting for coverage. You won't need all of it, but it does freeze very well for months, so nothing gets wasted. Let your pastry sit on the bench for about 5 minutes, just to come up to temperature a touch. Press it a few times with a rolling pin to flatten, then roll from the middle away from you, as well as from the middle towards you, to stretch it out gently. There will be bits of butter everywhere, and that's intentional. As soon as you have a 40 by 20 centimeter rectangle, 15 to 7 inches or thereabouts, you stop rolling and give it a letter fold, meaning 1/3 down, then the other third over, like those letters you get with the bills, fines and scams. Once you have that, you turn the pastry 90 degrees. So the foldy open ends are now facing you and away from you. Make sure your bench is well floured, as there will be open bits of butter, and this thing will stick to the surface. Repeat the rolling and letter folding 2 more times, for a total of 3 times. Once it's rolled out, you keep it in the fridge until needed for the final stage. A little tip is to roll it around a piece of parchment like so. Basically the same as those pastry rolls you get in the frozen section at the store. Your meat is done when it's fork soft, or when you can shred it without much resistance. You still need a tiny bit of texture, so don't go cooking it until it's a pulp, but if it easily shreds with a fork, it's done. To get the correct texture, we somewhat, but not too over the top, break up the meat a little bit. You still need some bigger chunks, so don't shred it to bits. A nice glossy balanced meat mix is what we're after. Not too thin, not too thick. Place your mix into a container and cover it with a piece of parchment. The same one you used to cook it under will do just fine. Cool it down quickly in the fridge, because warm filling and cold pastry do not get along very well. You can make the pastry and the filling in advance, by the way, so it's just a case of baking it on the day. While your filling chills, we can roll out and line the pie tins. I like using these aluminum tins. They hold about 240 milliliters in volume, and very close to the pie sizes we got when I was a kid. Let it come up to temperature again, otherwise it'll break all over the place, which will end in tears of sorrow instead of tears of joy. And avoiding problems is easier than dealing with them later on. Once good to go, you roll it out into a large 3 mm thick sheet, or cut it down in more manageable pieces. Cut your pastry out so it has plenty of overhang for the pie tins. You can do this in whatever you want, make a big one or press it into little muffin tins. So obviously you go by eye here and use common sense. You have more than enough pastry, so don't skimp. Line your tins of choice with pastry and snip off most of the excess, leaving enough overhang to add the lid and nice crimp. Once lined, you store them in the fridge, as the pastry will heat up during all this messing around. You can also cut the lids and store them in the fridge until ready to use. For the lids, they just need to cover the top with a touch of overhang, but not as much as the bottoms, because, well, there are no walls to line. Obvious, but worth mentioning. Heat your oven to 180 degrees Celsius or 356 degrees Fahrenheit. Once the filling is cold, we add a non-negotiable secret ingredient: a little grating of fresh nutmeg, going in now to preserve the freshness and clear nutmeg flavor. Give it a mix, then fill your pies nice and full. We don't like underfills, so go right to the top. For the egg wash, we use 2 egg yolks, beaten with 20 ml of water, then passed through a sieve to remove snotty bits. Once that's done, lightly brush the pastry and put the lids on and seal them tight. Tidy up the edges if you like, then crimp them however your heart desire. A simple way is to just use a fork and press it down round the outside. A classic from my childhood. Once sealed, you brush them with egg wash all over, getting into all the little nooks and crannies. Into the fridge they go once more to chill for 5 minutes. Then out for a final egg wash layer, and also to cut some steam vents, which is a little slit down the middle of the pie. If you're making a big one, go all fancy with decor and whatnot, but for these small ones, a little cut will do. Bake for 35 minutes until they're deep golden brown all over, rotating the tray halfway for an even bake. Once ready, cool them for about 15 to 20 minutes before attempting your first bite. Saying these are hot is a slight understatement, so better be safe than sorry. If you did it right, it should glisten and blister at the top. The filling will be beautifully balanced and have a fiery, peppery kick. But before you go do any of that, go live a happy life.